So I don't know if you know, the Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin went AWOL and didn't tell anybody where he was. He was in the hospital getting treated for cancer. That's what he says. I don't know. I think he's a big liar. So I don't know. But people couldn't find him. And that's, by the way, that's a fireable offense. You certainly should be at least be demoted. But he did, none of that's happening to him, right? Because he's doing the bidding of Raytheon, the military-industrial complex, who are the real people who got him that job, who are the real people who are running our foreign policy. And so he gave some testimony the other day, and here's what Matt Gaetz says about it. As Defense Secretary, Lloyd Austin begs Congress for grace and forgiveness after his unauthorized absence was exposed earlier this year. He refused to give the same grace to the 8,600 service members he kicked out due to the COVID-19 vaccine mandate. You want to see this? Here we go.
You didn't tell the president that you had cancer, and treated for cancer, or that the treatment for that cancer had gone wrong, because you saw it as personal and medical. And I think a lot of us have empathy for you in that regard. But now that you see how personal medical decisions are, will you call for the re-recruitment, restoration of full rank and back pay for the 8,600 service members who were vax mandated out of the military?
No, I won't.
So on March 4th, 2021, you authored a memo. It was entitled Message to the Force. And in that memo, you said that there would be clear and swift accountability for anyone who didn't meet the highest standards of the Department of Defense. Now, however this worked out, we all acknowledge that what you did here didn't meet the highest standards, right? You made a mistake.
I admitted to.
Yeah, okay, so we got that. So then the question is, what becomes the clear and swift accountability? Now, you're not going to be discharged, right? No?
That's right.
Okay, you're not going to be suspended. You're not going to be demoted, and you're not going to have your pay cut. None of those things are going to happen to you, right?
That's right.
Okay, so you come here seeking some grace and some forgiveness. And I want you to know that one of the service members who you vax mandated out of the military sent me the parable of the unforgiving debtor. And it's in the book of Matthew, it's verses 21 to 35. The man fell down before his king and begged him, "Please be patient with me, and I will pay all the debt." Then his master, filled with pity for him, released him and forgave him of his debt. But when the man left the king, he went to a fellow servant who owed him a few $1,000s. He grabbed him by the throat and demanded payment. His fellow servant sat down and begged him for a little more time. "Be patient with me, and I will pay it," he pleaded. But his creditor would not wait. He had the man arrested and put in prison until the debt could be paid in full. When some of the other servants saw this, they were very upset. They went to the king and told him everything that had happened. And the king called the man who had been forgiven and said, "You evil servant, I forgave you that tremendous debt because you pleaded with me. Shouldn't you have mercy on your fellow servant, just as I had mercy on you?" Then the angry king sent the man to prison to be tortured until he had paid his entire debt. Mr. Secretary, you come to us seeking forgiveness, but you offer none. And it seems as though the pattern is repeated. You make a mistake, like on the vax mandate and here regarding your notification, then you get busted. President Biden had to sign something into law reversing your vax mandate. You got busted here, not because you came forward, but because we learned of this through other means. And then after you get busted making a mistake, you want that benefit, but you don't want to extend it to others. This isn't swift or clear. You're not meeting your own standards that you set for yourself. And you say that the DOD is a learning organization. Haven't you learned yet that the military is weaker, not stronger, with the 8,600 people that you vax mandated out of the military?
Just one point, Congressman. The reason I'm here is because the chairman requested that I appear to talk about the circumstances surrounding my hospitalization.
But don't you see the hypocrisy in it? Because you screwed up, we fix your screw up, and now you want grace. But these people who have sought religious exemptions, They got no such grace. And also, I just think it's ridiculous that we're in 3 wars. You went AWOL for 3 days, and we get 2 hours with you. If you can't spend more than 2 hours answering these questions, I don't know how you really operate in all these wars.
I think Lloyd Austin should just do what everybody does when they get put in a corner these days and just accuse Matt Gaetz of being an anti-Semite. So here's some tweets about it. He should be thrown out with no benefits and no pension. How do you like that, Mr. Secretary? He didn't just throw out the service members with nothing. He threw out their families with nothing to rely on other than honorable discharge. You can take away his benefits and pension, but he'd still be rich. After retiring from the military, he made millions sitting on corporate boards for Raytheon, Tenet Healthcare, Nucor, and United Technologies. Corporations basically bought him after he retired. So there's your Lloyd Austin. There's your who's just a complete tool of corporations, the military-industrial complex. He's a lying warmonger. He's not your friend. He's your enemy. And now we have black guys that to do it. Like he was just like Colin Powell lied us into the Iraq War. Now they have another African American guy lying us into Ukraine war, and all the rest. Isn't it fantastic? The only thing that would make it better if he was gay or non-binary. That would make it so much more tasty for me. Anyway, over to Keaton and Russ. What do you have to say about this?
Well, I mean, so much of the COVID policy consequences cut so deep that they are irreparable at this point. But back pay for people who are wrongly fired is probably the most solvable of all of the problems, probably the most reconcilable. Like, we have the money to give back pay. Should absolutely get back pay. I mean, that's a no-brainer. It's just an absolute no-brainer. It's the easiest thing in the world, and it's doable. It's doable. Some of that $60 billion that the Chuck Schumer is trying so hard to get to Ukraine wouldn't cost a drop in the bucket to that. So, yeah, I mean, that's the easiest thing in the world, I would think.
When your system is being run by self-interested parties like Austin, you need, through perfectly legal, safe, and effective means, Jimmy, I know you probably want to clip this for YouTube, you need to overthrow that system. You need to overthrow it. When you have somebody dictating or having great input into military policy who profited to the tune of millions of dollars from the arms manufacturers who stand to benefit from these policies, these people need to be taken out of government. We need to overthrow this entire system. We're well beyond what can be fixed through regular order democracy, in my opinion. Only safe and effective means, as I said.
I remember when being a war profiteer was considered a sin and a bad thing. And you would be embarrassed and humiliated if it became, I mean, I don't actually remember. I mean, I've read about it. But what, isn't that crazy how now you're supposed, like, being a war profiteer is considered like a Christian thing to do?
It's a prerequisite almost if you want a cabinet position like this. I mean, you know, it came as no surprise. Yeah, they all come out of Raytheon and, you know, all of these boards. Yeah, it's you're right. The system needs to be overthrown, and I'm not. You know, I say that at my live show. I say it in very strong terms, and I'm not kidding. I can't wait for when the truckers and the union workers and the farmers all descend on Washington, D.C. and demand, you know, a rewriting of the Constitution to get money out of politics, to get the criminals out of the Treasury, to picking our pockets, and end the wars, end our empire. We don't need 1,000 military bases. We don't need that. That's not. It's not in the United States' interest to do that. It's in the interest. Of course not. It's in the interest of Western corporations. It's not in the interest of the citizens of the United States. And we could take that money and we could spend it here at home, and we could have things like clean subways and clean streets, and we could get rid of our homeless problem, give people health care. We could do all those things. Go ahead. You want to say something? As
they have in the other countries that I've been traveling in over the last year. Like, Greece is not a rich country. You don't see people sleeping on the streets like that. I mean, very rare, very rare. I live in New York City, one of the richest cities on the face of the earth. You can hardly get on the subway without untreated, severely mentally ill people being on the car with you. I mean, I better than 50% of the time, you're going to share the car with somebody like that, and they're not to blame. The system is to blame. You go to any other Western country, it is just not like that. But none of those Western countries are spending hundreds of billions of dollars on their military. And that money is getting funneled into the pockets of these defense contractors who all the people in our government work for. This is what I'm saying. You have to pull all the, I don't know if we're covering the story about Hawaii, about the land being bought up.
Yeah.
These people are trying to set up a world where we are techno serfs. That is what we're moving towards. And if we do not come together, left, right, whatever, we need to come together as a people and make it ungovernable. We have got to shut down what they are trying to do, because it's, in my opinion, it's almost too late.
Okay, I agree. I think I'm very pessimistic on the future of America, and I think it's just going to keep devolving until it's. I mean, I think we're on par with Brazil. I've never been to Brazil, but from what I understand, we're pretty close, and we're just as corrupted for sure. I can't imagine a more corrupted federal government than we have. I can't imagine it. Right. The idea that you live in a democracy is a joke. You live in an oligarchy run by a handful of billionaires and corporations, and that's that.
Right.
And the result is you get sick, you go bankrupt. The result is you have to work 2 and 3 jobs just to keep your head above water. The result is senior citizens have to take their medicine and only take half of it because they can't afford it. The result is you go out in the street and you're accosted by mentally ill people, drug addicts, and I mean it's just it's crazy. But Jon Stewart would tell you that's the price of freedom. No, that's the price of corruption. That's the price of corruption, asshole. And he's a spokesman for it.
That was one of the most insane things I have heard anyone say. I couldn't believe it because I hadn't seen that before you played it. I could not fucking believe the level of ignorance. Does he actually believe that? Because we got to assume Jon Stewart has traveled outside of New Jersey and New York and the general tri-state area. How could he say something like that?
Well, he always travels with a Nazi guard, I think.
Yeah.
Hey, come see us live on tour in Los Angeles, Palm Springs, Stockholm, Amsterdam, Rotterdam, Berlin, Copenhagen, Oslo, Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, Cortland, New York, Oakmont, Pennsylvania, right outside Pittsburgh, El Paso, and San Antonio, Texas. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all those tickets.